Well, it is now time for weather with Nebraska Extension Ag climatologist and Market Journal Chief Meteorologist Al Dutcher. Well, Al, the precipitation has been sparse at best, and the heat has really been ratcheting it up here in the month of August. How are things looking as we turn to the week ahead?
Well, Bryce, this hot, dry trend is continuing. We've seen the very warm temperatures for most of the week. When we did see a cool down, it was only for a day before we rebuild the heat back in. In terms of precipitation, very isolated precipitation and not much in the way where it did fall of significant moisture. Had some reports in central Nebraska, a little bit in east central Nebraska, a few isolated pockets in southwest and the southern panhandle. But outside of that, the vast majority of the state, probably 95% of the state, didn't even get any measurable moisture. And of that 5% that was left, probably half of that didn't even get a quarter of an inch of moisture. So we didn't see any significant relief. And now as we look forward, we do see the heat returning. We do have some chances of precipitation here in the first part of the period, but it looks like the dry trend and the warmer pattern reestablishes itself as we move through next week. So let's take a look at the upper models, and the first thing I'll draw your attention to is that the high pressure system responsible for all the heat is sliding a little bit toward the east. It's going to allow some monsoonal moisture to wrap around the backside, and along with this trough moving across the northern plains, sets up the stage for some precipitation. Particularly the northwestern one half of the state has the best odds of moisture as this monsoonal moisture wraps around that high pressure system. And as we get into Sunday morning or tomorrow morning, we're basically going to be looking at this trough moving across the northern plains. We still have a low pressure system that will move from northwestern Kansas into southeastern Nebraska. That should still touch off some scattered isolated thunderstorm activity across the southeastern half of the state, but very concentrated moisture across the northern plains to the Great Lakes. Now, as we go into Monday, this high pressure system itself is starting to gradually slide toward the east. We'll take that cooler weather off toward the Great Lakes, and we'll start a warming trend. We still see some precipitation chances across east central, southeast, and south central Nebraska, but not widespread in nature. On Tuesday, now the ridge starts to invade western Nebraska and starts to make its push toward the east. We return back to the 90s across the west. We're probably going to be flirting in the upper 80s to low 90s across the east, and just an isolated chance for some showers across south central Nebraska. The main bands will be to our east. On Wednesday, we see this high pressure system extend itself all the way into eastern Nebraska. Low pressure develops in northeastern Nebraska, but we just don't have the moisture with the flow on the front side of the ridge. So just showing basically a scattering of isolated showers that may develop if the cap can be broke. And on Thursday, this high pressure system slides even further toward the east. It's going to be very warm and it's going to be very sticky, unfortunately. Low pressure once again develops in northwest Kansas, another one in southeastern portions of Iowa. Nothing in the way of significant moisture to work with. Most of the monsoonal flow stays to our west, and on Friday we start to see this high pressure system slide toward the southeast in response to a trough moving across the northern plains. That may be going to cool down as we get to next week, but overall we just see an absence of moisture in regards to this next 7-day period. Now, if we look a little bit farther out into the future, this takes us from next Thursday through the following Tuesday, so it does include some of this hot and dry conditions. We're looking at a continuation of the heat, and most of that will be in the first half of the period. In terms of precipitation, we start sliding that below normal precipitation more toward our southeast, and we start to see a more aggressive monsoonal flow pattern. So if this trough can move across the northern plains, hook up with this monsoonal flow as we get into next week and that trough moves across the northern plains, we may see a little bit more widespread moisture across western Nebraska. The bigger question is, will it be too soon or too late in regards to the heat we've been seeing?